By the end of 2016, private sector credit growth in Kenya had fallen to just over 4.3%. Those are levels not seen in about a decade. Now, for some banks, fresh lending is growing at an even slower pace as measured since last August, around the same time when rate caps were imposed across the entire sector. So what are banks doing? Some of them are doubling down on mobile banking and lending. Barely a week ago, Commercial Bank of Africa launched Loop. It's a platform that aims to bring in another 1 million new customers on board and nearly $300 million in deposits over the next 3 years. My conversation with the Group Managing Director, however, started by looking at if Kenya's rate caps has made it much harder for the bank to deal with the surge in non-performing loans, which had more or less doubled to about $32 million by in September.
To separate the two issues, I mean, the rate cap obviously has an impact from an earnings perspective. I think that the NPL portfolio performance is more driven by substantial economic activity, and this is really very sector specific and also very segment specific. What do I mean by that? I think you'll find it's around the unsecured lending where we are finding a lot of issues on NPLs, and then specific companies which are going through some cyclical challenges.
Using, again, third quarter numbers as a benchmark, you had customer deposits of about roughly $1.6 or so billion by that point in time. Using that as our benchmark, how big can Loop grow? I mean, you surely have growth targets for this particular product in terms of deposits, in terms of transaction costs that will be going through that particular channel. So what are the numbers for Loop?
3 years ahead, our expectation is that Loop as a segment which is targeting principally millennials, but also people who are looking for solutions which just go beyond the run-of-the-mill banking service, is that they'll be able to manage their payments effectively, manage their investments, and manage their cash flows. So from a deposit generation perspective, what we are looking at in the next 3 years is this service should be able to generate for us at least 30 billion shillings in new deposits, and also generate for us at least 1 million new customers.
You've got Loop in your portfolio, that's the new child on the block. You've got M-Shwari as well, which is pretty much the runaway success that a lot of people probably didn't expect to develop as it did. But in light of what you discussed earlier, we've seen the surge in NPLs, or conventional loans, but how has M-Shwari developed over the same timelines in terms of both fresh lending plus non-performing loans over that time?
In the 4 years of operation up to December 2016, we've lent in excess of $1.5 billion in equivalent lending. And so it's quite substantial from that perspective. We do, and on the average, depending on the time of the month, between 70,000 and 100,000 loans on a daily basis. 30% of those loans are taken between 3 a.m. in the morning and 6 a.m. in the morning. So from that demographic and statistical perspective, we believe that it's actually touching the needs of micro SMEs in a very true way.
That gives you a pretty strong insight into the strength of the economy, doesn't it?
And I think that that is really the difference we are trying to drive as an institution, in that when you interact with people, you get a lot of information and insights. It's really what you do with that information which is important. So, as I said, we are happy with the results we have achieved so far. And I think that we've also been surprised by the fact that delinquencies are there. Obviously, there are people who borrow and either do not intend to pay or are not willing to pay. And so that is quite a substantial cost to us if you measure it from the perspective of the revenue we are generating. But if you look at it in terms of the actual amounts of exposure we run, the overall delinquency ratio is below the banking industry average.
So what are we looking at, 5%, 2%?
It's, the banking industry average is currently sitting at about 8%. We are well below that.